The love and hip-hop world has been shook to its core once again, and this time it's not just a messy brawl or another on-camera collapse, but something far deeper. Rumors are circling. Minx may have just dropped a bombshell that no one saw coming, according to behind-the-scenes conversation and a few eyebrow-raising postings. NBC has purportedly come forth with reports that Kirk Frost, Rasheeda's husband, has been having a covered affair with another Love and Hip Hop cast member. The name of this lady remains unknown, a mystery, but what we do know is that tensions have been mounting for weeks, and now it seems that it's all coming to the surface. Fans are horrified. Rasheeda, according to reports, the Love and Hip Hop production staff is scurrying to undertake damage control before things escalate much worse. It's all simply drama for the cameras, or has Kirk truly passed the threshold that might end everything? Stay with us as we dig over what really occurred, what Minx is saying, and how the cast is responding to this bombshell discovery. Right, it wasn't until BC arrived up to the most recent tape, abnormally silent, and apparently annoyed that things really began to take a turn. He hardly greeted anyone who held his phone in his hand, and seemed to be reading through anything with an expression ranging from bewilderment to wrath and scene. But no one dared to inquire, not yet. Backstage, Yandy attempted to draw him aside and ask what was wrong, but he reacted with a low. You'll notice the tone in his voice wasn't just serious, it was dangerous, and within hours the buzz started to become louder. Whispers began flying that Minx had uncovered something that might possibly wreck not just one, but numerous relationships by nightfall. That buzz escalated into a frenzied. Word got around that he was going to confront Kirk Frost in front of everyone, not just about money or business, but about a suspected affair that might alter the whole narrative of the program. The tension was already bubbling over. When the core actors met for a production dinner provided by the network, the tone was meant to be joyous. New season, new storylines, but all everyone could feel was Kirk and Rasheeda had already taken their seats at the far end of the room, chatting to producers and laughing, ignorant of the storm headed their way. As men neared the table, silence fell, and Yandy trailed after him anxiously, trying to predict what he loomed over Kirk, who eventually glanced up and sneered, not pleased. "What's good, man?" Kirk remarked, nonchalantly reclining back in his chair, but BC's wasn't in the mood for small talk. "You tell me," BC responded, "or do you want me to pull out the messages right now?" The room froze. When a few phones started recording from under the table, Rasheeda's grin faded and Kirk's posture tightened. "What messages?" Kirk inquired, trying to keep his voice steady, but a flash of worry ran over his face. "Don't play stupid," Minx answered, bringing out his phone. "Tap it a few times. I wasn't even searching for it, guy. Someone gave this to me, and if it's phony, tell me right now." He flipped the phone to show Kirk. The screen exhibited a succession of playful, seductive, and definitely intimate messages, with the name stored at the top was that of a well-known female cast member. Kirk's number matched. The timestamps were recent, and the tone was far from pleasant. Gasps rang around. Rasheeda grabbed for the phone on the table, but Minx pushed it back. "I'm not trying to cause a scene," he replied, despite the fact that the drama had already occurred. Kirk slowly rose up. "Do you truly believe this? You think I'd be VC?" shot back. "You're asking the wrong question. Questions instead of trying to refute it. Maybe ask who sent it to me, since they're claiming it's been going on for a minute." Rasheeda shoved her chair back. "So you're saying my husband's been cheating on me with another cast member, and you waited until now to say anything? I didn't want to accept it." BC stated, softening little, "But when I saw the receipts, felt like if I didn't speak on it, it'd make me fake too." The producer rushed to calm everyone down, but the damage was done. Kirk stormed out of the room without saying anything else. Rasheeda followed closely behind, clearly fighting back tears. Yandy remained beside VC's, shaking her head and murmuring, "Baby, are you sure this was the correct way to handle it?" He glanced at her and said, "I don't care about this false brotherhood anymore. If he's doing dirt, I'm not going to cover it up." The rest of the group hummed with conjecture about who was the mystery lady. whether it was someone now working with them or someone from the past. Season who still had links to the group names were being floated about discreetly, some realistic, some outlandish, but no one could deny the vibe had. By the following morning, social media was ablaze with someone leaking a fuzzy. The video of the altercation was swamped with conjecture. Fans were selecting sides. Some backed Kirk, claiming Mendes was clout chasing, while others commended him for being the only one bold enough to disclose the truth. Hashtags like hashtag Kirk exposed and hashtag Mendes leaks began trending, but Rasheeda stayed quiet online, with no comments or cryptic messages, just pure radio silence, which further fueled the fire. More fans thought the worst. Sources reported she had packed her bags and fled the marital home. Some said she was demanding Kirk go live to explain himself, but Kirk had also gone. Dark, no posts, no stories, no interviews. The only one speaking was Mendes, and even he wasn't talking much, simply a story post that stated some truths don't we need captions. What made things more worse was that the purported lady involved hadn't uttered a single word, even a denial. That silence spoke volumes to the admirers who were already persuaded she was guilty. The comments on her postings were nasty, with some branding her a family wrecker and others demanding she reveal her side. Maybe simply frightened of making things worse, producers arranged for an emergency cast meeting the following day to deal with the aftermath. Kirk turned up with sunglasses on and barely. Rasheeda arrived separately wearing all black and a stone-cold attitude. Mendes walked in with Yandy's arm wrapped around her waist. As they sat down, one of the producers addressed the elephant in the room. "Before we move forward with filming, we need to make sure we're all on the same page," she said. "If these claims are true, it undermines the integrity of all we do. If they are not, we need to know what occurred before things spiral out of hand." Mendes sat up straight. "I said what I said. I got the messages, and I ain't going to apologize for not staying quiet." Kirk eventually responded, "That's sweet, but you still haven't revealed who sent it. You're out here ripping up my life with half the tale." Mendes locked eyes with him. "You really want to do this here?" The text came from someone on the team, and they stated this wasn't the first time. The room fell motionless again. Jaws dropped. If someone from the crew was participating, it indicated this reached deeper than everyone anticipated. Cheating scandal, it was a complete web of dishonesty. The producers were obviously worried since they hadn't expected this degree of exposure, and just like that, as Rasheeda vanished into the corridor, Kirk remained frozen, watching her walk away without saying anything, which hurt him even more. Than any shouting fight could have. Stillness was worse. It was cold, definitive, and full of meaning. The actors mumbled among themselves as the crew hurried to follow Rasheeda while simultaneously maintaining their lenses fixed on Kirk's next move. But DC stayed at the middle of the room, arms crossed and mouth tight, knowing darn well what he had done wasn't little. He had stirred the pot, no question, but he thought it was for a cause. He believed people had a right to know the truth, even if it came packaged in turmoil. Yandy drew in closer to him, and she said under her breath, "Do you really believe Kirk's done?" Mans did not respond quickly. He merely observed the cast unfolded like a guy who'd seen it too many times before. Eventually said, "When lies catch up, they don't knock. They kick the blasted door in." Meanwhile, Kirk began pacing, running a hand over his face, while Tasha remained with her arms crossed, stubborn. She didn't turn away, didn't flinch, and it was as if she had been waiting for this day, like the truth finally leaking out had been pent up within her for far too long. One of the producers warily approached Kirk, proposing he take a break, but Kirk waved him off. "No, if we're broadcasting at all. Hey, let's get it done." His voice was wobbly, however, the confidence was fading, and then out of nowhere Scrappy came to set. He hadn't been scheduled to film this scene, but news had definitely spread rapidly. "What the heck is going on here?" he questioned, his gaze flitting between. Scrappy approached Kirk, dropped his voice and asked, "Bro, you were genuinely taken off guard like this?" Kirk looked at him, almost pleading, "It's not as it seems." Scrappy shook his head, smirking in disbelief. "It never is till it is." The tension was so thick that you could feel it in your bones. Cameramen looked uneasy. but they continued rolling because they knew this was gold. Fans would eat it up because it wasn't just gossip. It was treachery, brotherhood breaking down, and reputations at stake. Meanwhile, backstage, Rasheeda was sitting alone, eyes puffy, pulse beating. She hadn't even turned off her microphone, so the producers were still collecting every word she mumbled to herself. Something seemed off, but I continued dismissing it, thinking, maybe it's just stress, maybe it's just life. But it was falsehoods. It was him. Her phone buzzed again. Alerts coming in. Already admirers were responding in real time to the stories surfacing on social media, because word always spreads quicker than the cameras can switch off. #Perk exposed was already trending. Back on set, Tasha wasn't done. I didn't come here to blow things up, she added, addressing the whole audience. I came here because I wanted to be true for once. I've been the side girl in silence, and I'm tired of males getting away with it while women are called every turn. In the book, some cast members nodded softly while others looked down. Everyone had their own interpretation of this narrative and their own ghosts. But just now Tasha was center stage, and male DCs gazed at her with a combination of reverence and uneasiness. You didn't have to step forward, he continued, but you just knew this was going to alter everything completely. Aside, maybe it has to. Kirk came forward again, voice low and breaking. You had your chance, you made your point, now can we just go on? But no one was ready to go on. Not when the pieces were still falling, not when the damage hadn't even been calculated yet. And Yandy gazed around the room and muttered to herself, this is more than just an affair. Years of artificial smiles, pretend allegiance, and cameras capturing what people believed they buried. Her words resonated in the air like a curse because she was correct. What had begun as a disagreement was developing into a full-blown unraveling of in the corner. A teenage intern working on audio murmured to a cameraman, this feels too real. And he wasn't incorrect, because occasionally even contrived reality programs may stumble across raw, dirty truth. Kirk sat down, his energy depleted for the first time, and he looked little. He wasn't the dazzling businessman or the loud voice in the room, just a guy who understood his world was disintegrating, and there may not be a way to mend it. Scrappy attempted to lighten matters by changing the topic, but it didn't work since the weight of the scandal was too big. He ultimately withdrew. Men, VCs aside, dude, I understand it, but you sure this was the move, men? VCs stared at him dead serious. How long can we allow individuals keep injuring others just because they are on TV? Nah, someone has to hold him accountable. Scrappy nodded slowly. I hear you, just hope it doesn't cost more than it's worth. And just when folks thought things may calm off, a shockwave struck when one of the producers stated that Rasheeda wanted to come back on set to say something publicly. Everyone paused, and Kirk glanced up suddenly, eyes wide, shocked. What the heck's she going to say? Mindy, C's, and Yandy shared a look. We about to find out. Yandy whispered, her voice a whisper full of suspense. The crew hurried to put up lighting and tweak audio. This wasn't planned, but sometimes the finest sequences never are. The actors gathered, muttering in anticipation, and when Rasheeda eventually stepped back onto that set, her face was serene yet unreadable. It was the type of calm that comes after a storm, the eye of the cyclone, right before everything went silent or exploded all over again. That's precisely where we'll start up in Chapter 3, because what Rasheeda says next will shock everything to its core. As Rasheeda strolled onto the scene, the audience went silent. Turned to her, not a single murmur among the cast or crew. She walked with the type of quiet power that only came from deep sorrow, the kind that doesn't scream or weep but just stares straight through you. Kirk arose slowly, wondering whether he should approach her or wait. His hands trembled at his sides, as if he wanted to correct something but realized it may be too late. Rasheeda's heels clicked on the floor. She stopped square in front of the cameras, without even looking at Kirk, instead turning toward Mendes. You said you were being real, she whispered, her voice quiet yet, well, you said you were doing this for the truth. But what about my truth? Min didn't react straight away. He glanced at her, trying to judge where this was heading. I never intended to harm you, he added slowly, but people need to know who they are truly dealing with. Rasheeda nodded almost as if she anticipated that response, and I deserve not to be humiliated on TV. Facing something I wasn't even permitted to prepare for, she turned, eventually catching eyes with Kirk. You sat in our home, kissed me, told me we were rebuilding, told me everything was behind us, and the entire while you were motionless. Fooling about with folks on this very set. Kirk opened his lips, but no words came out. Not a single justification, not a single denial. He simply gazed at her like a man caught in the headlights of his own ruin. Rasheeda turned to the cameras, addressing not only to the room, but to the world beyond the lens. I've put up with a lot for love, family for the brand, but this is a boundary that has been crossed, so let me be clear. I didn't come back here to weep. I came to make sure you'd see the truth from my lips, not just his or hers. Anyone else's. The room was still hushed, everyone scared to even breathe too loudly. Kirk gazed down at the floor, as if it contained answers he couldn't find in his wife's eyes. Bambi arrived. Yo, I just received the text, she said, brandishing her phone. Twitter's going wild. People believe you're faking all this for clout. Rasheeda turned to her with a stern gaze. Do I look like I'm playing? Bambi quickly moved back. No sis, not you. I know this is true. I'm only saying others are already developing conclusions, and they nasty dudes. BCs took a big breath, stepped forward again, and let them vent, because this ain't about clout. It's about responsibility. Scrappy chimed in, trying to mediate. Yo, I understand that, but this is some real problematic timing. We all have things going on, and this will be what people remember from the season. Yandy crossed her arms. Maybe that's not a terrible thing. Maybe this season doesn't need to be about parties and foamy narratives. Maybe it's finally time people saw the fractures. Rasheeda's lip quivered slightly, but she didn't ask for the storyline. I wanted for tranquility. Just then, one of the assistant producers muttered something into another crew member's ear, and a camera moved slightly to the right, showing Tasha standing just off stage. She hadn't gone. She had been watching everything unfold in quiet. Rasheeda met her and locked eyes again. This time there was something unusual in her eyes, something sorrowful, not furious. You could have informed me, Rasheeda whispered gently, coming closer to her lady. Might have informed me. Tasha's voice broke. I tried but wasn't strong enough. I didn't want to think I was part of the damage, but tears welled up, and I never intended for you to find out like this, not like this. Rasheeda gazed at her for a long time before whispering, you wanted for me to never find out. With that, she turned and proceeded back into the middle of the set. Men. DC stood aside as she passed, giving her room, but his expression. Kirk drew a hesitant breath and eventually found his voice. Rasheeda, I'm sorry. I honestly believe that could mend things. I thought it was finished between me and her. It was meant to be a mistake I left behind. Rasheeda went on him with fury in her voice. Now you don't get to call it mistake. A mistake is spilling a drink. This was a choice over and again. And now that the camera's caught up to you, you want to speak about repairing things? Kirk opened his lips again, but Rasha stopped him off with a raised palm. Don't. She took a step back, inhaling slowly. I need time and space, and maybe I need to stop being the one who repairs everything while you damage it. Her words echoed around the room like thunder. Kirk nodded. With no defense left in him, Yandy moved closer to Rasheeda's position. A hand lightly on her shoulder. Whatever you need, we have you, she whispered quietly. Rasheeda gave her an appreciative nod, her eyes sad yet firm. Thank you, she said as the camera moved around. Room again capturing the emotion. Scrappy appearing surprised, Bambi wiping her. Even the crew members stood motionless like witnesses in a trial, and suddenly another twist. Mona Scotty Yung herself strolled into the stage. Producer seldom came into view, but this was too large to ignore. Mona peered around her face. This wasn't in the script, she said, but it's genuine and sometimes true. Stories need to be shared, even if they hurt. She glanced at Kirk. We'll chat later. But for now, we're taking a break. Everyone cleared the stage as Rasheeda began packing equipment and stepped away, while men DCs went up discreetly. I never intended it to come out like this, he said again. Rasheeda nodded slightly, without turning to face him. We've all had to deal with it now. She marched out with her head held high, not waiting anyone to follow, and that's how it ended for now, a broken relationship and a cast. Split and a show that now seemed more genuine than ever. But this wasn't the end, not even close, because when the dust settled, a new layer of drama emerged. Off camera, alliances would alter, and certain secrets would be revealed. Kirk's supposed adultery and Rasheeda's violent response. While Mona had briefly stopped shooting, the drama had taken on a life of its own. Rasheeda sat alone in her dressing room looking at the floor. Her hands were folded firmly in her lap, knuckles white, attempting to contain it all. She had created so much with Kirk through years of hardship reconstructing after the past. Betrayals created a brand that people liked and respected. And now with a few with remarks from guys and a simple nod from Tasha, it seemed like everything was collapsing. She no longer cried in front of her. Her tears had dried up. She felt something deeper now, an aching that went all the way to her core. A knock sounded at the door, but she didn't respond. The door gently opened and Yandy walked in with a sweet expression on her face. Her expression was guarded, as if she knew one incorrect word might crush Rasheeda completely. "Again, I brought you some tea," she remarked, setting the cup on the table. "You all right?" Rasheeda didn't look up to find all right, she said, and Dandy sat alongside her. "I know. This wasn't what he signed up for, yet you handled it with more fortitude than any of us could have expected," Rasheeda finally turned to her. "It's not only the cheating, but the treachery, the lying, behaving like I was insane for asking questions. And the worst thing is I remained through it all because I believe maybe he finally changed." Dandy groaned and nodded. "Sometimes we love so much that we forget to defend ourselves." They sat in quiet for a minute, the tea steaming between them undisturbed. Meanwhile, in another area of the building, Kirk was pacing furiously, leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Bro, you screwed up, and not just a little. This is a career-ending type of disaster." Kirk massaged his face annoyed. "I didn't want for things to go this far. I thought it was ended." "I didn't realize Tasha was still scrappy," shook his head. "You didn't know or care." There's a Kirk glanced aside, unable to respond, and then came the next twist. Cameras weren't filming, but drama doesn't wait for the ideal lighting. A crew worker hurried into the corridor, clutching a tablet. "You'll need to see this," she added excitedly. She gave the device to Mendes, who had just stepped out of his room. On the screen was a new post that Tasha had gone live in. In a stunning move, she took to social media to tell her side of the tale, and what she said stunned everyone. "I never meant to talk," she added, gazing right into the camera. "But now that the truth is out, I need people should know that Kirk wasn't the only one participating, and I wasn't the only cast member he was speaking with." The live chat flared instantaneously, with fans guessing, demanding names and pouring accusations. But Tasha wasn't done. "There was another lady, and I kept her hidden because she asked me to, but now I'm done. Faithful to those who never defended me." Back in the hallway, Kirk's face became pale. "She's lying." He mumbled. Guys, DC gazed at him. "Are you certain about that?" Kirk's silence screamed volumes. "Scrappy." He moved back, shaking his head. "Yo, this has gone from terrible to nuclear." Yandy raced into the hallway, foam in hand. "Did you notice what she just said? Already cutting it for you two." The producers were in turmoil. This wasn't just one incident anymore. It had evolved into a full-fledged controversy, threatening to pull the whole cast into the muck. Rasheeda eventually emerged from her dressing room, foam in hand, going through the comments flooding her page. Supporters were showering her with encouragement, but also asked, "Who's the second lady?" Kirk, the new Stevie J. Rasheeda deserves. She stepped right up to Kirk, who seemed to be ready to swoon. "You told me it was just Tasha," she said. Her voice was razor sharp. "Kirk, who else do I need to find out about?" Kirk sputtered. "I didn't mean for this to happen. It was before we were trying again, before we said we figure things out." Rasheeda's jaw clenched. "And you lied again, even after everything came out. You didn't come clean about the cameras being rolled back out." Producers recognized they couldn't squander this moment. The program was suddenly scripting itself. Mona stepped aside. She put on her headphones and watched the carnage unfold. Terrified and let them roll, she instructed the camera crew. This is reality. And just like that, the drama started up with genuine tears, wrath, and real as the camera lights flickered on. Rasheeda turned toward the team. I want this filmed every second of it because right here is my closure and maybe eventually my release. Kirk attempted to grab for her hand, but she jerked away. Don't touch me right now. Maybe not ever. She went off the stage again, this time with her head held high, not as a broken woman, but as one recovering her tail. Bambi and Yandy, standing off to the side, both startled. Bambi murmured, "Do you believe she's truly done this time?" Yandy nodded slowly. I think she had finally had enough. The actors remained motionless, uncertain what would happen next. The atmosphere was heavy, the stillness was deafening, and even Ben DC, who had initiated this series of events, seemed rocked by the sheer enormity of what had transpired. And then came one last curveball. Tasha is still alive and has dropped the name of another lady you know. She's been on this program, she's gone to the parties, excursions, events, and she's married too. Jaws fell all across the studio. The name was eventually bleeped out by producers, but at that instant, the cast understood precisely who she meant, which meant even more relationships were set to disintegrate. Mom stepped in again. This time, calling a true stop is enough. This is going to be legal now. Can't broadcast anything else until we clarify this. You all need to get your tails straight, but it was too late. The truth, or a variant of it, was already out in the public, and the harm was done. Rasheeda went into the night, accompanied by security, refusing to talk with anybody else. Kirk, perched on the edge of a BC, stood alone near the monitors, looking into nothingness from a fake sofa. He had triggered a chain reaction, and Yandy went to the team and stated this season will alter everything. Yet even as the camera, the drama didn't stop flowing, and group conversations were exploding up with threats. Lawsuits were discussed between representatives and fans, who were already yearning for the reunion show where everyone would be forced to confront each other in public under lights with receipts. And that is where the tale stops, not ends, for in this universe, no treachery remains, buried forever, and no one comes away without scars. What had transpired was beyond reality. It was raw and ugly, and it was genuine. We witnessed love fall headfirst into treachery. Secrets burst in real time and lives are flipped upside down right before our eyes. This it was no longer just about Kirk and Rasheeda, but about everyone involved, impacted, and everyone exposed. The real issue is what happens next. Rasheeda walks away for real and finally chooses herself. Will Kirk strive to get her back or let it all slip between his fingers? And was Tasha's startled chuckle her final phrase, or simply the beginning of something? Who was the second lady she revealed? And how far does this twisted web of falsehoods truly go? Fans are already taking sides, but the truth is still unfolding. And don't forget Minx. Was he disclosing the truth or stirring the pot for his personal gain? Did he intend to help Rasheeda, or did he have his own objective all along? Things are spinning out of control, and one thing is for sure, the next chapter will be even crazier. So if you've been captivated from the very first instant, don't go away. Hit that like button. If you believe Rasheeda deserved better, write a comment with your opinions on whatever side you are on. And if you want to keep one step ahead of the mayhem, make sure you subscribe and enable alerts, because when the truth comes back swinging, you'll want to be right here with us. This isn't the end, it's only the beginning.